Rock Jocks does not express the views of any Mountain West Conference members or their affiliates.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
New teams, new divisions, new expectations. Sounds like the perfect time for a new podcast. Grab your gear and come climb with us. This is Rock Jocks.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Here's Rock Jocks, your one-stop podcast for everything MWC. We're your hosts, Preston Crosha and Steve Schwartzman. How you doing, Steve?
I am fantastic, Mr. Preston. What you up to?
We've got a lot of good stuff today to cover. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with the new listeners, new podcasts. Lots of stuff to break down for the upcoming football season, as well as some great stuff. But what do we have on tap?
Well, we originally were going to book Matt Damon, but he got bumped. He had a previous
bummer.
engagement. Yeah, we were really excited about that one. He actually knows a lot about Mountain West football, believe it or not. Who knew why? But actually, today we're going to start off by giving a little state of the Mountain West Conference, and we're going to talk about our personal feelings on where we stand. Conference has been a long way. Then we're going to give some school facts and a breakdown of our first 4 of the 12 schools. This is going to be a 3-part segment coming up in future episodes. We're going to talk Media Day, give some ideas and some insights about players of the year, how teams look. We're going to go top to bottom with the conference divisions. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what we learned, and then we're going to leave you on your merry way, hungry for more.
Well, that sounds fantastic.
I can't wait.
It's going to be a good time. So, with no further ado, let us turn the time over to Steve Schwartzman for the State of the Conference address.
So this was a segment that we wanted to put together. The conference has been making a lot of changes, a lot of big moves, and we thought the best way to bring it to you was to share with you where we think we are as a conference, what our future looks like, and honestly, the best way to do that was to do it as presidential as we could, because can we have success as a conference, Preston?
Can we have? Yes, we absolutely can.
Yes, we can. We have hope. Yes, we can.
I like that. I see what you did there.
So without further ado, here is our State of the Mountain West Conference.
Ladies, gentlemen, honored dignitaries, and contributing representatives of the hallowed Mountain West Conference, our hearts and passion reach out to you. It goes without saying that these are special times for our nation's fastest rising athletic conference. As we look to the following year, our faces gleaming, weight rooms clanking, and miles of work yet to go, you can be sure of one thing: our time to climb is now.
Things have never looked quite as bright for the sport of football in the Mountain West Conference. Training camps begin this week, and excitement can be felt all across the Intermountain West for these teams to show what they've got. This year, the Mountain West has players on preseason watch lists for national awards, including 3 on the preseason watch list for the most acclaimed individual award in all football, the Heisman. The list of award nominees goes on and on. With the split into 2 divisions and the advent of the MWC Championship game, the competition for the Mountain West crown will be tougher, longer, and even more exciting. The 2 divisions will give each other stiff competition to show the nation that this conference is one of the most competitive top to bottom. There will be no easy wins for any one team against their inter- or intra-divisional rivals. Our teams will go head-to-head against the BCS conferences 18 times on the gridiron this season. This is an opportunity to stand up to the neighborhood bully and show him that we don't think they can push us around anymore, because we have grown bigger, stronger, and better.
We are beyond thrilled for all levels of legend and greatness we will see on the turf this year, and if it couldn't get any better, times can only be at their peak when we switch to the hardwood. The same conference that boasted 5 berths in the men's NCAA tournament last season, 2 Sweet 16 berths, and an NBA first-round draft pick in Anthony Bennett, has miles upon miles to boast about, and it's only about to get better. With talent on the rise and expectations finding fever pitch, we learned quickly that the quality of play is not the only thing pushing our conference to the forefront of our momentum in college hoops. We in the Rockies now boast what no question is the most scintillating crowd environment from sea to shining sea. The Pit, the Show, the Spectrum are only a few marquee names of group-dedicated fans willing to lay out their heart and soul for their team's success. Earplugs and unified chants in tow, take to the arena come winter season, put eyes on the hard one, and prove to yourself just how Mountain West Hoops puts us at the peak.
Truly, the future of our beloved conference holds only the best. Championships, trophies, awards, and the acclaim of peers. Football and basketball are just the beginning. This conference will continue to climb toward the peak of collegiate sports. Now we set out with our hopes high and our foam fingers ready. May we just say, in Craig Thompson we trust. MWC forever.
God bless the Mountain West Conference. There it is. Round of applause. You are all actually welcome. Anytime we applaud, you're allowed to applaud at home.
with us.
Yeah, go ahead and get on our Twitter. Just hashtag applause. I'd be totally cool with that. I actually kind of hope that one spreads. Please do that, everyone who's listening. And just so you know, this would be a perfect time for a plug. If you ever had the opportunity, get on Twitter at MWC Rock Jocks. Give us a follow. Tell your friends to follow us also. We'll be giving insights all the time. I know Preston's on there all the time, and he's just shooting facts left and right. So you're going to love that. That's where you're going to find out links to stuff that we record, any opportunities for future endeavors that we have. Get on there, share what you can, give us your ideas, insights, what have you. So get on Twitter. Check us out.
And of course, go and follow the other Front Row Network shows on Twitter. Make sure to download their podcasts. They've got some really good stuff going on.
Yeah.
But I think that let's just go right into our interesting facts and breakdowns of some teams in the Mountain West. We're going to do this alphabetically. I think that that's a good way to do it.
Well, let's do it.
Let's start off with the U.S. Air Force Academy. So what kind of interesting facts do you have for us out of Colorado Springs?
I actually kind of like this. Most of my facts about all the schools here are usually about, I know you would talk specifically about the schools, and then I wanted to hit some facts about the actual host towns where the schools are from. But I was looking up Air Force, and I actually just thought this fact was kind of cool. So for all of you underclassmen and co-eds at a given university, you might find this interesting. So at Air Force, of course, they're a military-run school. Their class rankings, they're not known as freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. That's actually not something that they run by. They go based off of their cadet ranking. So seniors who are in their fourth year of school are actually called firsties. Firsties? Because they are first-class cadets.
I'm sure there's a lot of really good puns that they could pull with that one.
All kinds of things they can run with that. So I actually thought that was a pretty cool fact about Air Force.
Yeah, I like that. Mine is kind of related. I thought it was very interesting that at the Air Force Academy, they don't do any red shirts for athletics at all. The cadets are in for 4 years and 4 years only. But apparently, and I don't know how true this is, I read this somewhere, but Connor Dietz, who graduated this past year, he was the quarterback, that he was actually given an extra year of eligibility because he broke his hand and could not write. So I thought that was very interesting. He couldn't, not for athletic reasons, but for academic reasons, had to have an extra year. And then, of course, everyone knows they have the weight and height requirements for the Air Force service. So their offensive linemen are much smaller than usual. They average 6'2", 250 pounds, which is about about 2 inches and 50 pounds lighter than the average in the conference. So that is quite impressive.
So size-wise, I could almost qualify to be a lineman at Air Force. I'm not saying quality-wise.
No,
I'm close.
Strength-wise, maybe not. But but size, maybe.
Maybe if I pop in a 5-hour and drink some plutonium, I have a shot. But
maybe.
Not quite.
All right, so let's just get to the breakdown of Air Force. What do you think about Air Force this year in the Mountain West for football?
You know what? Air Force is definitely one of those sneaky teams that I actually really enjoy. I haven't had a chance to watch too much tape of several of their players, but I'm actually decently impressed with their defense. I actually like the defense onslaught. I like their defensive backs. Christian Spears is a guy who I feel pretty highly on. Stephen Bates is also someone that I have some good tabs on. So I think a lot of the honest success that is going to come out of Air Force is really going to come through their possible ability to improve on their pass defense. I know that they didn't post the best numbers last year, but some improvement there could really help them out. On top of that, they run that pesky triple option, and you really never know what they can do to a defense with that.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how Cale Pearson comes on. Obviously, Connor Dietz graduated this past year. Cale is going to be coming in as the new starter, possibly with Ben Oken. We'll see. He's a freshman coming in. Ben Oken might actually compete for some time. But Kale, you look at his numbers, he didn't have a lot going on last year. He only threw for 128 yards, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So we'll see how they develop with him. I think that they've got a solid running back in John Lee Jr. Obviously, like you said, the triple option, they're going to be running a lot of plays through him, as well as Brome Hart Jr. I think that's pretty funny that both of their
couple juniors.
shout out to the
juniors.
Not that they're necessarily young or small, but I do like that. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how their offense develops around a new quarterback. Like you said, the defensive backfield could have some nice improvement. I think, for me, the guy to look for on defense is Alex Hansen. He had 9 tackles for loss last season. I think that he's going to have a lot of success rushing some quarterbacks, getting in the backfield, breaking up plays. I look for them to be, like you said, one of those pesky teams that could really surprise people. But we'll see how they do this year.
And I think Jared Jones at linebacker is also a diamond in the rough. So I really feel like Air Force could surprise some people on defense. One other note with their triple option is we're looking at a lot of these running backs, and I think a lot of offenses or defenses are going to be focused on that triple option in their running backs. With that being said, I really think look out for Ty MacArthur and any opportunity he has to really break out. I think he's a potential weapon for them.
Yeah.
Air Force 6-7 last year. How do you feel about them this year?
I really like Air Force. I've always liked the way that they run things. Troy Calhoun is a very good coach. Obviously, they're very disciplined. I think, in all honesty, don't hate me, Air Force fans. I think that they're a 5-win team this year. They've got some really tough games with Notre Dame on their schedule. So it'll be interesting, but I think that 5 wins is going to be their total.
That's an interesting thought. Just taking a look at their schedule, I think there are definitely some wins that are going to be tougher than you would think with Air Force, and that's really not a knock on Air Force. The West Division in the Mountain West this year is going to be pesky on all ends, and you look at the end of their season where they go New Mexico, UNLV, Colorado State. That's almost not a for sure win any of those games against any opponent.
Yeah.
So I can't honestly say that they'd be able to pull all those out. That being said, they are playing some stiff competition even in mid-season. I mean, they don't play Notre Dame till October. Mm-hmm. That is a home game, albeit, so who knows how that's going to pan out. So I think you're going to see some tough game there. At Navy could actually be a lot of fun, and I think there's a chance for them to make a lot of noise there.
Yeah, sure.
That being said, maybe I'm just being a little too cautious. But I am just going to sit tight and go. They're pretty much going to go stat quo. I'm thinking a 6-win team. I think they're going to be bowl eligible, and I think they're really going to set a good precedent there. I just want to see them prove themselves a little bit with their pass defense, and I'd also like to see how Cale Pearson proves himself, or whomever ends up as their solidified quarterback. Wherever that stands, I think they have a lot of proven before I can honestly say they'll improve. That being said, for them to improve, I do think they have the abilities, the tools, and the weapons. It just comes down to proving that those are going to work under their system.
Well, and like you said, their system. Air Force has a really well-run system. They know what they're going to do. Well, everybody knows what they're going to do. They're going to run the triple option. They're going to be very fast off the line. Their offensive linemen are obviously going to be faster than most anyone you're going to see. But it'll be interesting for sure. It'll be interesting this season.
I also like to think that to get a team from a mid-range bowl team to an elite team, it all comes down to coaching. I think that's the factor that gets you up. And with Troy Calhoun, it comes down to the fact that triple option, in my opinion, is so unpredictable that it's become the most predictable offense in football. I know that sounds weird, but if you sit and think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And to me, it really comes down to how is he utilizing the weapons under that option attack to have any sense of success. If he can prove that, we could see a shocker out of Air Force. But right now, I just don't see it. They have a bit of proving to do.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, Boise State. Boise State. Let's do a few interesting facts. I think that everybody knows about the blue turf. It's referred to as the Blue in Boise. across the country it's referred to as the Smurf turf, whatever you want to call it. It's a very interesting thing. I did not know this, but they have a trademark on the field. It is specifically theirs. I don't know if that means that other teams can't have blue turf or exactly what, but it is trademarked, and we are currently on the 5th generation of turf there. They have done blue turf, 5 different fields. So hoping it's a this isn't the last generation. I'm sure that they'll stick with the blue for sure.
So over in Boise, one thing that I actually love is if you've ever had the opportunity during bowl season, there's a lot of good bowls. Getting out to Boise for a bowl game is a lot of fun. The Potato Bowl is a really cool event. But if you know anything about bowl history, you know that for a long time, the bowl out in Boise was called the Humanitarian Bowl. And that actually is a nod to a really cool tourist attraction out in Boise called the World Sports Humanitarian Hall of Fame. Now, what this is it's a hall that is specifically catered to athletes, notable athletes, who have made strong contributions to charity, to their communities. Some notable inductees: Dale Murphy, Arthur Ashe, which actually makes a ton of sense, Julius Erving, so Dr. J's in there, Billy Mills is in there, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, David Robinson, Tom Landry's in there. So a lot of cool names who've done a lot of cool stuff. The Harlem Globetrotters as an organization are in the Humanitarian Hall of Fame. So it's actually a really cool thing. So if you're ever out in the Boise area, check out the Humanitarian Hall of Fame.
That's awesome. That is very cool. I'll have to check out the Sports Humanitarian Hall of Fame.
The Sports Humanitarian Hall of Fame out in Boise.
Cool. Very cool. Well, let's break down their team this season. It's Boise State. Boise State is going to be a favorite ever since they went and won the Oklahoma game. That bowl game was, as my father put it, one of the best football games he has ever seen. And I have to agree. Ever since then, they have been so, just dominant. Really.
Usually you see a team pull an upset like that, and that becomes the storied moment for their organization. But it's fun to see a team like Boise take that and use it as momentum to actually become a solidified elite program.
Yeah.
So, huge. Totally.
Yeah. Well, and with Chris Peterson as their head coach, I just really don't see them falling off anytime soon. Like you said, it comes down to coaching. If a mid-major, quote-unquote, team wants to be, up there with the big boys, it really comes down to coaching. And he's an awesome coach. He obviously runs the 4-2-5 defense that is kind of really revolutionary. Some of the players that we need to look out for, I'm just going to throw this name out right at the beginning, and that's Jay Ajayi.
Absolutely.
I think Jay Ajayi as their running back coming in to replace Harper from last year. He didn't have that many carries, but he had 548 yards.
6.8 yards per carry.
That is impressive. That
incredibly.
That is a per carry average total that is just amazing. I think that he's going to be one of the best, if not the best, running back in the conference. And Joe Southwick, you and I both know what to think about Joe Southwick. He is an underrated passer. Last year, Boise fans were a little bit disappointed that he wasn't Kellen Moore, but who is Kellen Moore?
Yeah, you look at his numbers, and people like to think that he was very underwhelming, and though he didn't perform up to the level of some of the past Boise State quarterbacks, I think that he has a lot of potential to stand out. We forget that he actually was pretty impressive to finish off the season, had some really solid games, only threw 7 interceptions all year, 2,700 yards. There's a lot that he can speak to. The other thing with that is that he comes with some offensive weapons. I think Jay Ajayi is someone that makes it so you can't focus on the passing game. Having Matt Miller and Kirby Moore means you can't just focus on the running game. He's going to have opportunities, and to me that means he's going to have open opportunities downfield. Now, my big game guy that I want to talk about, and I'm just going to be honest, every time we bring up this name, I always just want to growl, because this guy is a behemoth. I was watching tape on him today, which was not the first time, and that is my sleeper pick for not just the Conference Defensive Player of the Year, but the National Defensive Player of the Year. If this happens, you heard it. Steve Schwartzman said it first on Rock Jocks. The guy that I think can challenge Jandavian Clowney for a Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion, is DeMarcus Lawrence out of Boise State. If you want to talk about just a physical freak with great fit. I almost wanted to say field vision, but that's kind of a basketball term. Just with great intangibles, his ability to get to the tackle is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. He only posed, was it 14 tackles last year? But they were probably the best 14 tackles in the conference last year. If you watch tape on him, it is amazing what he was able to accomplish. On top of that, he's a behemoth on special teams. Dude blocked a field goal.
Yeah, well, he's big. I mean, he's tall, he's fast, he's really anything that you want him to be from the defensive line.
And then you've got a guy like Rick Jongajo, who also is someone that you can't put your head away from. I think there's just so much opportunity for that defense, and it all centers around the fact that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to shake a lot of heads, and he's not afraid of big game. Pretty much every marquee quarterback last year in the conference, he sacked.
Yeah.
Was able to take to the turf. So I don't know that anyone's necessarily safe on the guy. It's going to come down to containing him. So I think Boise's chance for screaming success is going to come off of the feet of DeMarcus Lawrence. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, you went with the defensive line, and DeMarcus Lawrence, 14 tackles for loss, and 9 of those being sacks. He missed several games with suspension. I believe that he missed a game with injury, so it's not like he played all games. He's going to put up really ridiculous numbers. I'm going to go back to the offensive line, the big nasties up front.
Let's do it.
Charles Leno is a very experienced offensive lineman. I think that they're going to have a pretty solid group behind him. Matt Paradis, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that.
Correct us on that on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah.
If you'd like to. We ever get a name wrong, let us know, fans.
Yeah, and Spencer Girk coming in with 14 and 8 starts, respectively. They've got some experience, but I really think that Charles Leno will kind of get those guys around him and say, let's do this together, guys. Rally them together as a leader for that offensive line.
Which, again, you give 1 pound of power to an offensive line, that gives you 5 pounds of power to the quarterback.
Exactly.
So I think the more they gel together, the more dangerous Joe Southwick actually gets. I just don't think you can sleep on Joe Southwick, no matter how much the mainstream media likes to say we can.
Yeah, I think that he's going to, and this will be a theme that we revisit over and over and over, is that in this conference, quarterbacks are king. There's just so many good quarterbacks, and you really can't discount Joe Southwick as one of those great quarterbacks. He's going to have really good numbers. He had a really solid year last year to kind of grow and develop into that role. I think that this year he could have a breakout year. Just so many weapons all over the field. Jeremy Ione, I don't know how to pronounce that name either, at defensive back. He had 3 interceptions, as well as Darian Thompson had 3 interceptions. They're solid all over. I think they're going to have a solid season. I'm going to say 11 wins.
You're going to go 11 wins.
Yeah.
So Boise last year 11-2. You're going to stick at 11.
I'm going to stick with 11. They've got a tough game with Washington. I think that will be a close one. It's at Washington in their new stadium. It's going to be packed. BYU could be a tough game, but I think that Utah State, divisional rival, is going to be a really tough game in Logan.
In Logan, yeah. I think that's what's going to make it tough, is that this is probably the first year that a team like Utah State actually has an opportunity to step up against Boise, so that's going to be a tough run for them. Looking at their schedule, there aren't a lot of easy wins for them, but my thing with Boise State is I just don't see how they have a weakness so glaring that another strength somewhere on the field helps compensate for it.
Yeah, I agree.
If you say there's a weakness at quarterback, their running game has some strength, their receivers have some strength. If you say that there's weakness in their defensive back, which there really isn't, then you look at their offensive line, you look at their linebackers. There's a way to compensate for everything. What it comes down to for me with Boise is you wonder, I know this sounds funny, but it's really the small idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
Special teams, things like that. Their abilities to really turn big plays into huge plays. Is that going to be evident? Are they going to be explosive against everyone? That being said, I personally think that their strengths outweigh their weaknesses resoundingly, and so I honestly see. I have my math correct, so I'm not going to give a win record just to be safe. But I'm going to go ahead and say Boise's a 1-loss team. And I honestly think they have a great opportunity to squeak their way into a BCS Bowl this year. I honestly think that they have strengths that oversell their weaknesses. I'm not 100% on that. I really think they could get a second loss there. I mean, Tennessee Martin, man. Who knows what they can pull off?
I don't think that Tennessee Martin's going to do anything. Let's be honest. It's in Boise on the Blue.
Well, who knows? Weirder things have happened. And who's Tennessee Martin's quarterback right now? Is that Joaquin Phoenix? Is that who's there? Shane Falco?
I'm pretty sure that he did Johnny Cash in Walk the Line.
Is that what I'm way off.
Yeah, that's an actor,
I have
Steve.
all of my lines crossed. But that being said, no, and that's the thing is I couldn't tell you where that one loss comes from. So honestly, there's a chance that I think you could be very correct. But I feel confident in saying they have all the tools needed to pull off no more than one loss, get their way into a BCS Bowl, and keep that momentum. But it's going to take work. I honestly can say that this season's going to take as much work as any of their past successful seasons. And it may not look at that after you take one glance at their schedule, but as you start to research their schedule, man, you go from their September 28th game against Southern Miss, you can even go back to their Fresno game. The rest of that season, I don't know that you have a particularly easy, breathe easy win. Not that all of those are potential losses. But you're playing some pesky teams in Colorado State, Wyoming, New Mexico.
Let's remember New Mexico played them within 7 points last year. So,
but I'll say this about Boise, and then we'll move on to our next team. Is there was a lot of controversy about them, leaving their bid with the Big East to come to the Mountain West.
Best decision ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if the Big East keeps their prowess, what competition do they have to outdo this competition for Boise? I think that this conference legitimizes them and gets them to the level they know that they can be. I really firmly believe that.
The former Big East, now known as the American Athletic Conference, I don't think that they are going to keep their prowess. I mean, we're Mountain West homers, so of course we're going to say that, but I think that the Mountain West oversteps the American Athletic Conference. And Boise made a great decision to stick with the Mountain West. Let's move on. Let's move on. Colorado State going down to Fort Collins. What do you got for us?
Rams. I love this. I was looking at some tourist attractions, and I want to give a quick shout out to Matt Sonnenberg, who hosts the Front Row Show. This attraction is right down your alley. So looking at some fun attractions, just at some things to do in Fort Collins. Now, if you've ever been out to Fort Collins, I love the place. I have friends and family there, and I absolutely love it down there. And I'm not much of a drinker, but if you are, this is right down your alley. If you have time, get out to Fort Collins for a beer and bike tour. So it says that these tours, so you go on a cycle tour, you try out a trail out in Fort Collins, and then at every tour, they try out a new brewery in town. So it's kind of one or the other. So you don't go and bike under the influence, but you get an opportunity to try out two cultures at once. You try out their outdoor scenic feel, and then you get to go and try out some of their culinary opportunities with their beer. I just thought this was actually a really cool thing that they do. I could tell you how often they run, but I'd have to do a lot of reading on this page on me. But I thought that was a really cool, innovative opportunity that they have out there. But all kinds of tourist opportunities. If you've ever wanted to think about, what's a town that I've never thought would be a really fun attraction to get out on the summer? Fort Collins is actually a really cool city.
Yeah, I like it. I like it out there. I've got family as well out there. I've been to Fort Collins several times. But specifically about CSU and a little bit of their history, Cam the Ram, their mascot.
I love that name.
I know, isn't that a great name? First of all, Cam the Ram is not a bighorn sheep. For me, it was a little bit of a letdown. It's not the ones that you see like butting heads, in the mountains. But he is a Rambouillet, which is essentially an overgrown sheep. He's got a really nice rack. It's got like 3 curves in it. It's like it looks really cool. But he was kind of a recent addition to the history of the school. Originally, Cam, well, it wasn't Cam back in the day. CSU was known as Colorado Agricultural and Mechanical, and they had a black bear as their mascot. So they would bring out a live black bear for their games, which I don't know how that worked safety-wise. I met a guy that was mauled by a grizzly bear this week, and that was not pretty. But a black bear on the field during their football games, I thought that was pretty cool. What do you think about them this season in the Mountain West, though? Colorado
State's one of those teams that I can't really put a finger on.
Yeah, I agree.
I personally like Tim McElwain as a coach, and I think that he is getting CSU on the right track. Their quarterback situation is a question to me.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't look like they have a strong front runner. And that's something that concerns me. And you know what? They have decent wide receivers that could compensate for that. I like Charles Lovett as a wide receiver. I think he's great with what he does. But at the same time, I just don't see blatantly what their offensive prowess necessarily is. That being said, I've always seen Colorado State as a team that is a momentum swinging team. And I'll talk about that in a second when we talk about their record. But if you give Colorado State historically a little bit of wiggle room to gain some momentum, they'll take it, and in some cases, literally, they will run with it. And they'll make a lot of things happen. Colorado State's not an easy win, and I wish I could nail that down to any of their players. I do want to highlight Aaron Davis and Max Morgan at linebacker. Did I get that correct, linebacker?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm bad with positions. You guys should know Preston's totally the brains of the function. I'm just here for comic relief and to look cute.
Well, you do a good job of both of those.
Just
Steve.
pretend that you know what I look like. But Aaron Davis and Max Morgan, 64 tackles, 63 tackles respectively. And then you've got Corey James with 40 tackles at linebacker. That linebacker core is a lot to speak on, and I think has a lot of things that can really make a mess of an offense in this conference. But also at defensive back, I like this guy. His numbers are decently impressive, but his name is wonderful. Shaq Bell.
Shaq Bell, baby.
That's one of the best names in the conference, and I couldn't live and not bring that up. So.
Well, they do have three guys with 4 combined interceptions in the defensive backfield. I think that their defense will be solid this year. They do have a little bit of inexperience on the defensive line with Shaquille Barrett and Calvin Tonga as their only returning guys with tackles for loss.
But hey, 2 Shaqs. First of all,
I know Shaquille Barrett and Shaq Bell. So there you go, Shaq B. Yeah,
love it.
Yeah,
that was not planned.
That was not planned. Garrett Grayson and Connor Smith. From what I understand, they are still in battles in fall camp for the starting job. Garrett Grayson started the year last year, had some pretty decent numbers, then got injured halfway through. Connor Smith then stepped in, did a good job, and actually their offense to me looked better running through Smith than it did with Grayson.
Okay.
Their numbers don't exactly show it.
Combined for 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Yeah.
So on paper it looks awful.
Yeah, Smith, yeah, exactly. Smith had more interceptions. He had 6 interceptions, but he had more yards than Grayson, and I think that their offense just kind of flowed a little bit better, like I said. It'll be kind of a fight for their offense. Donnell Alexander as their running back averaged 5 yards per carry last season. I think that's a decent per carry average, but it's going to be tough to see where their production comes from on the offense. Their offensive line has tons of experience. Weston Richburg, Jordan Gragbert, I hope that I'm pronouncing that, and Ty Sambralo. Let me read this. Sambralo. 3 really experienced guys on the offensive line. I think that they're going to have some success there. But it's hard to pin down, like you said, any one player that's really going to stand out for them.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see, but I got to say, this is one of those teams you can't sleep on. If you listen to any of the Front Row Show podcast, you'll know that I was a guest, and I brought there are 5 teams in the conference that we Preston and I call the 5-hour energy teams, and they're those 5 teams that look like they could be an easy win that you cannot sleep on.
Don't sleep on them.
I think CSU is one of those teams. I think they're one of those teams that carry a lot of momentum. And last year they finished, I believe, it was 5-7. 5-7. And I look at their schedule. I think they will beat Colorado week 1. Absolutely. I think that they have a great opportunity with the state of where Colorado CU is at right now. I think that there's just too many opportunities for them to finally beat that rival team. I think Tulsa should be a fun game for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am not saying, and please don't misquote me, I am not saying that they are going to beat Alabama week 4.
They're going to beat Alabama.
At Alabama.
I'm kidding.
Okay. It's like, well, who's the gutsy one here? That being said, I really think Alabama is a good stage for them to at least legitimize their offense if it can get there. I think there's some opportunities for them to potentially, if they can put up some sort of a fight, if they can hold with Alabama for a half,
If
for
they can
3/4,
move the ball.
yeah, if they can make some sort of noise, that could be the momentum they need to come into conference play and possibly shake some things up. That being said, Alabama could also be the deflating death call for them, and it makes it hard on them. With that all put into play, I see a lot of potential out of this Colorado State team. I see them being pesky. It's just hard to say with the youth in their offense and the lack of stability in their offense that they're going to make a lot of huge things happen. So I honestly see CSU, in my opinion, being a 4-win team right now. They could shock me, definitely, but I feel like by the time they get to conference play, it's kind of hard to say that they'll be solidified enough that they're going to be able to handle what is a cavalcade of strong linebackers and strong quarterback teams coming into the conference. And their conference schedule is not easy.
No.
They hardly have an easy win opportunity week by week, and so I see that being a tough run for them.
I agree. I think that overall they will be a better team with a record that doesn't show that they got better. If you understand what I'm saying there. I will agree with you. 4 wins this season, I think, is really my prediction. I think that they will be better and this program will continue to grow, but the record won't show that they got better, kind of thing.
Yeah, I really do think that they are a team that is a rising team, making a lot of improvements. So on paper, everything says that they don't look as strong as I honestly think they are. And I think that a lot of their losses are going to be some pretty close, pesky losses that are going to put some flux into some teams. So yeah, I see big things in CSU's future. I just feel like this year is going to be a year for them to start building those foundations. And you're going to see a lot in the future. But
yeah, I agree.
All right, Fresno State. Let's head out to San Joaquin Valley and chat about the Fresno Bulldogs. What do you got for me?
Well, the San Joaquin Valley. So, playing my NCAA football video games growing up as a kid, I always saw the V on the back of their helmet, and I could never figure out what in the world that meant. It was just like, what is a green V doing on the back of a blue and red helmet?
Is everyone varsity?
Exactly. So I couldn't figure it out. But then I did a little bit of research, and Fresno fans are going to be like, wow, Preston, duh, But the San Joaquin Valley produces a huge amount of agriculture. And I know that your little factoid relates to this, but their crops go out all across the West and all across the world, and so they're proud of that. They wear it very proudly. Obviously, their mascot, their symbol, the bulldog has the little chain on his collar that's got the V. So they are proud of where they're at. They're proud of the valley, and I think that's great to have a lot of pride, for lack of a better word, for your hometown.
Absolutely. Also, a couple things. Always good to note Fresno, pretty close to Modesto, which is the home of George Lucas, I believe. So pretty cool stuff.
I believe.
Also close to the prison that houses Charles Manson. So Fresno are the bravest people in the world. So pretty cool stuff. There's actually a lot of notable people in there that I wish I could go into. But you brought up agriculture, and I have a very narrowed one that I thought was just fantastic. Fresno prides themselves on being the raisin capital of the world. Half of the world's manufacturing of raisins takes place in the San Joaquin Valley.
50%.
50%.
That's amazing.
So if you're eating 2 raisins, it's very possible that one of those, actually, let's be honest, it's 50% chance that both of those. It'd be really funny if they just did. We have one from Fresno and one from elsewhere. And we put it in a box. But half of those things. So when you see if you remember, I'm in my mid-20s, so I remember the California raisin commercials.
Yeah.
And those were awesome. You've got like the jazz singing saxophone playing California raisins. That's
those.
actually a big nod to Fresno, raisin capital of the world.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. I really like myself some raisins, so whenever I'm eating raisin, I will think Fresno. I tip my hat to you. Let's talk about football. So last year, Fresno was 9-4. They had a really good season. They kind of got torched in their bowl game, which was unfortunate. Southern Methodist, SMU, really took it to them, and I think that gave them a kind of fire. In the media day this past couple weeks, I know that was a big talking point for them. They said, we want to prove that wasn't us, that was a fluke, that was not what we're all about. And if you look at their numbers, I mean, the big headline name is Derek Carr.
Absolutely.
Derek Carr is an amazing quarterback, a true pocket passer. You look at 4,100 yards. I mean, 4.1 thousand yards. That is a lot of yards through the air. 37 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. So he is, he's the consensus favorite for Offensive Player of the Year in the conference. I think that he could be a dark horse for the Heisman if he continues to put up numbers like that.
You absolutely never know
with
a kid like this.
And he's got amazing weapons returning around him, as well as 2 really experienced offensive linemen in Austin Wentworth and Cody Wickman. I just don't see any weaknesses on their team. They do have to replace their starting running back, but I think that Martez Waller coming in, as well as Josh Quezada, who's a transfer from BYU, both of those guys, I think that Quezada will get the nod to start this season. He's going to have a breakout season as well. I just don't see any offensive weaknesses for them.
Well, as much as we gush about Derek Carr, I gush almost even more about their receivers. Devontae Adams, 1,300 yards. Isaiah Burse, second in yards, 851. These guys not only have a cannon, but they have tools to catch the ball. That's going to put a lot of mess. And then on top of that, you head over to Darren Smith and Sean Alston at defensive back. I think on defense they have strong tools.
11 combined picks for those two. That is impressive.
I feel like that they are one of those complete teams that can make an absolute mess of a team, of an opposing team. They have all the tools. I think what it comes down to, yet again, good team, 9 wins last year. What gets them to the next hump? Coaching and remind me how to pronounce this man's name. I was
Tim DeRuyter. I believe.
I call him Coach Tim
DeRuyter, something like that. Fresno fans, please help us.
I've heard that name like 6 different ways on TV. So Coach Tim, fantastic coach. Obviously, you look at what he's done to skyrocket that offense and to set a foundation for the defense. I feel like he has those tools to make a lot of noise happen. I look at Fresno's schedule. I don't see it being so bad that they could not exceed expectations. But again, it comes down to they're going to play some heavy hitters in the conference schedule. That Boise-Fresno game is going to be so much fun.
For sure.
One of those dark horse games for the conference game of the year, really.
As well as possibly a preview for the Mountain West Championship game.
Preview for Mountain West title. It's a game that legitimizes players like Derek Carr and their ability against a big team like Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
They start off against Rutgers. I think that's a win.
I think they're going to take it to Rutgers.
I think that's going to be a resounding win. I really do think that Fresno's a 10-win team, and that's what I give them. I think they're going to win 10 games. They're going to get into a very respectable bowl. But it would not shock me if they get enough victories in there to not only win the conference, but potentially be that second team that could squeak their way into a BCS Bowl this year. If the pieces fit right and they beat Boise State twice, and those are Boise's only 2 losses heading into bowl season, I mean, what does that speak to them? So I think there's a lot of huge opportunities for Fresno. What this comes down to is seizing the opportunity. The example I can think of with Fresno is, and this is on a larger stage, but when USC had this with Matt Barkley's senior year, they had all the pieces in tow to just kick crap around and make huge noise, and that talent didn't step up. So it really comes down to exceeding expectations. Fresno, on their stage, with their home schedule, do they live up to those expectations? Are they coached well? Does Derek Carr handle himself well under pressure? Especially, let's see, what under some of their tougher road games at San Diego State, at San Jose State. I think at Wyoming's going to be a lot rougher than they're going to give themselves credit for. Does he live up to that expectation? Does he live up to those nerves? If he can do that, I think you're going to see a lot of huge things. But right now, I say Fresno's a 10-win team.
I think that's a good prediction. I'm actually going to go 11 wins for Fresno.
Okay.
I think that Fresno, in my mind, I look at Fresno State to be the Mountain West champion this year.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you look at the other teams, like you said, San Jose is going to be a tough team in their division. San Diego is going to be a tough team in their division, but I think that they have a more complete team than either of the San states. So Fresno State, I think, is a more complete team, like you said, all across the board. Darren Smith, Sean Alston, like you mentioned, on the defensive backfield. Devontae Adams is going to light people up through receiving. I just don't see any glaring weaknesses for this team. I say 11 wins.
Yep.
And I mean, they've got the two consensus offensive and defensive players of the year. They were picked to win the division. And I think that's a really good segue into our Media Day discussion.
Absolutely. So stay tuned for future episodes. We're going to talk about the rest of the Mountain West teams, but there's your first third of the conference. We hope you enjoy it. So Media Day, we're just several days removed for it. I'm going to let you run the roost on this one.
All right.
You're our Media Day guru.
So the Media Day stuff, obviously happening down in Las Vegas. A lot of really interesting storylines coming out of Media Day, from the media votes to, different topics that were discussed in interviews and such. Things as trivial, maybe not as trivial, but as interesting as Nevada players being just so hyped up about music at practices and their names on the back of their jerseys, which me as an egotistical punk, I'd love to have my name on the back of a Nevada jersey, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
specifically a Nevada jersey.
On any jersey.
If Nevada fans are listening, if you can get a custom Preston Croshaw jersey out here,
send it to me, baby. I am all about that.
We'll tweet a photo of that.
I am all about a Croshaw jersey. So just things as trivial as that to the importance of the momentum going from last year, the big time teams that we're going to be facing, like we mentioned, the Fresno State players just being mad as all get out about their loss to SMU in their bowl game. So there's a lot of really interesting things, but let's just discuss really quickly our dark horse or our front runners to overtake offensive and defensive player of the years. Obviously, like I just mentioned, Derek Carr, Darren Smith, both Fresno State Bulldogs getting the nod for those awards. Who do you think is the front runner for the defensive player of the year?
And it's funny because it's hard to say that Darren Smith isn't the front runner. He posts some really impressive numbers. But I'm going to challenge that. And this is a no knock to Fresno. You have an amazing defense. But I understand that he didn't play a full season last year. But how is DeMarcus Lawrence not far and above the defensive front runner?
I absolutely agree.
I don't fully understand that. I mean, I understand that he did run into some suspension trouble. He did have some injuries. He only posed what looks like a meager 14 tackles on paper. But if you watch the tape, it's more like he got 140 tackles with the effectiveness that he is. He's the complete all-around defensive lineman. I honestly don't see that. I brought it up earlier. I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence is just pitted to win the Conference Defensive Player of the Year. I think he challenges on the national level. He may or may not be a Jadeveon Clowney because Jadeveon Clowney is a Megatron. Wait, that's trademark nickname. He's a Decepticon. But I honestly think that there are miles and miles to go for Lawrence. That being said, that secondary in Fresno is a lot to speak to, so I understand why they would go that way. But those honestly have to be my two names. We have a lot of standout names, but those would be the only two that I could really give a full push.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is a beast. I think that it was a surprise that he was not voted the preseason defensive player of the conference. But if we're going to talk about defensive backfield and Darren Smith, I have to bring up a name in Bene Benwickery, who is the defensive
At
back.
SJSU.
Yeah, he's a cornerback at SJSU. 7 interceptions. Is he a cornerback or a safety? I believe that he's a cornerback. 7 interceptions, so 1 more than Darren Smith. I think that he is a really good defensive back, as well as Nat Bear at SDSU. He plays the Aztec position for them. He had 81 tackles. So he had a lot of tackles. But my dark horse for the Defensive Player of the Year comes out of Utah State in Jake Dowdy.
Okay.
72.5 tackles last season. I think that he leads a linebacker core in Utah State that is absolutely ridiculous. The only problem is that he has all those linebackers around him that kind of steal the spotlight. Zach Vigil and Kyler Fackrell, as well as Tavares McMillan. Those guys are really good. So I think Jake Dowdy, Zach Vigil, as well as a dark horse. I mean, Zach Vigil had 9.5 tackles for loss, as well as 69 tackles. I think that those are my dark horses, along with Bene Benwickery.
It's interesting because I brought up Smith and Lawrence as the potential favorites. It's actually kind of funny. My dark horse pick actually also comes out of Utah State, and it is Zach Vigil. I just think that you look at his ability to get tackles for loss, his ability to turn tackles into turnovers, his fundamental skill, and one thing that you're not going to hear a lot with Zach Vigil is his defensive leadership. I think Utah State last year lost a big defensive leader at Aboje Filamoyatu, and I think Zach Vigil is the type of guy that can step up and kind of be that leader. That being said, it's the same exact concern. Just like many teams who have depth of positions, Utah State's big depth is at their linebacker position. It's hard to say that someone's going to step up. It would almost take, and I would never wish this on a college player, but it would almost take them having to lose a linebacker down the road to like injury or grades or something weird like that, so someone was forced to step up. There's just a lot of talent there. It just comes down to how much does someone step up. I love Ben Wickery. I think that's also a good pick that I just didn't think about. But, that being said, these are great dark horses, but, man, you're looking at having to do a heck of a lot to outdo DeMarcus Lawrence. And if you beat DeMarcus Lawrence, you've got to take out Darren Smith. And honestly, if you take out Darren Smith, you got to take out Sean Alston. So it's like defensively, there's just so much to speak of in this conference.
I agree. For the Offensive Player of the Year, Derek Carr, it's hard to bet against Derek Carr, but the quarterbacks in this conference are just ridiculous. And I mean, we can talk about the running backs and the wide receivers and stuff like that and say, they have a chance, but let's all be honest. The Offensive Player of the Year at the end of this year is going to be a quarterback.
I don't think you can question that.
There's just so many.
I don't think there's a way to question that.
I think, and I know that you're going to talk about a guy that you're on his bandwagon, so I'm going to avoid
I've got a conference
that
QB
name.
crush.
He does. He's got a man crush on one of the quarterbacks. I think that the biggest challengers are the newcomers into the conference in the quarterback position, David Fales, Chucky Keaton. These two guys are really good quarterbacks. They are also on the Heisman watch list with Derek Carr. Chucky Keaton had 3,300 yards through the air, 27 touchdowns. He also had 600 yards rushing. He's a great dual threat quarterback, kind of a Cody Fajardo build as far as that goes. David Fales is more of a pure passer, a pocket passer, 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns. He's the most accurate passer in the nation, according to drills that have been done over the summer. I mean, he just took Johnny Manziel and Bridgewater from Louisville to town as far as accuracy goes in several quarterback camps. I think that David Fales is my number one dark horse for the Offensive Player of the Year.
That's a great pick. And I mean, that is a player in David Fales who could easily shoulder a team to potentially upsetting Fresno on that side.
I agree.
For the division title. There's a lot of talent that we're not speaking to. I think a lot of people's questions with the offense out at San Jose is a coaching change. But, you know, with their ability, with their players and the weapons that they have, and with David Fales and Noel Grigsby, I think there's a lot to speak of. I think Fales is the guy that shoulders that. So I think it's a great pick. I've got to give a nod to our running backs. I mean, it's true that this is a quarterback thing, but you go down the line of running backs. You go Jay Ajayi, Casey Carrier, who's not only an effective running back out of New Mexico, but probably has the best running back name I've ever heard.
Carrier, baby.
That is just fantastic. Cole Gauch should just change his name to Cole Thrower at the quarterback position just to make that work. And then you have Carlos Ketcher at the wide receiver. We'll just keep that running, but I just love that name so much. But a really effective guy. I mean, 1,400 yards last year, 5.2 yards per carry. Tim Cornette out of UNLV is a lot to speak of. Joe Hill coming in at Utah State is an athletic freak who, if you watch any of his tape, can do a lot of amazing things and is posed to make huge numbers out of Utah State. That all being said,
Adam Uema,
yeah. But that being said, look at these quarterbacks. There's no way you can question the quarterback's going to win this award. You can obviously Derek Carr is so pitted to make insane numbers. My two guys that I think have potential opportunity, Cody Fajardo out of Nevada. And for the record, both of my picks really come down to, can these guys, they're good, can these guys get their teams to win games?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to. Cody Fajardo out of Nevada probably has the best legs of all the quarterbacks we can speak of.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning quick, 1,200 rushing yards, which is phenomenal for a quarterback. You look at 2,700 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, only 9 picks. This is a guy that can breathe life, light a fire under an offense. But it really comes down to, does he gain trust out of his wide receivers? Can he get Brandon Wimberly to step up? You're not going to see too many carries out of Kendall Brock or Don Jackson at running back just because of the nature of Cody Fajardo. Can he use them as a passing threat? It really just comes down to his ability to make those guys players. But he has the numbers to make a big splash if they can win games. And then we talk about my conference QB man crush, who I just... This team is a diamond in the rough for me. I don't know why, but the more I watch on this guy, the more I want to gush about him. And that's Brett Smith out of Wyoming.
Can we get an awe?
I love me some Brett Smith. I am on the Brett Smith bandwagon. If you look at any of the numbers of our huge quarterbacks, our top 5 big guys that we'd like to talk about, how does Brett Smith not stand up to some of those numbers? 2,800 yards, 27 TDs, only 6 interceptions. He made a huge players out of both Robert Heron and Dominic Ruffron. Even Jalen Claiborne got some good receiving numbers. He really has made big players out of that. And I like to believe that Wyoming's a team on the rise. One of those reasons is it's great coaching out of Dave Christensen. Another big thing is just Brett Smith and his ability to play well. He is a junior this year. And with that shows some sense of upperclassman leadership. I feel like he made huge strides last year that just didn't get looked at due to the nature of the record of his team. And I honestly feel like he's a guy that we just definitely cannot sleep on. I'm not absolutely saying that he's going to outplay David Fales or outplay Cody Fajardo or Chucky Keaton or definitely outplay Derek Carr. But I honestly feel like a good dark horse pick is going to be Brett Smith. If he can shock some wins into that schedule, you'll see him make a lot of noise.
If they pull out Nebraska, I mean, they start out against Nebraska. If they pull out against Nebraska and he just has a monster of a game, people are going to say Brett Smith is the real deal.
Yeah, and I am definitely one of those people that is not ruling out that opportunity. I really think they have a shot at Nebraska. So
I agree.
Let's see what Brett Smith does with the Wyoming Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this was a pretty good first episode.
I think we had some fun. Did you have some fun?
I had a lot of fun. I had so much fun.
I love it. Quick question for you, though, Preston.
Yes, sir.
To finish things off, if you had one word to describe the Mountain West Conference coming into this upcoming year, and this is all sports, what would you say?
My word's explosive.
Explosive. I like
explosive. I think that this team is going to burst onto the national scene. I think that people are going to say, wow, look at the Mountain West Conference. Look at their 5 quarterbacks that are absolutely incredible. 5 of our quarterbacks were in the top 20 statistically for total offense. 5 out of 12 teams. It's going to be incredible to see. I think that we've got a lot of potential to explode onto the national scene, take on the BCS boys, and make a lot of noise.
Absolutely. My word is deceptive.
Deceptive.
Yeah, and I say that because this is a power conference. That the only reason it's not a power conference is that the word power conference isn't its label yet. No one's just taken the time to type those letters. We have the ability to stand up against most any opponent at any conference in any given sport. And I am a firm believer that a lot of noise can be made. Preston, you know who Joe Pesci is? The
Joe
actor
Pesci, yes, I do.
In almost any mafia movie, Joe Pesci is the guy that stands firm, broad-shouldered up against some like big bad Robert De Niro type character. And I think we're the Joe Pesci of the NCAA right now. We have the ability to be skilled, to be dangerous, to challenge anyone, and can make a lot of noise. And people just aren't looking to see that because the SECs and the Pac-12s and the Big 12s are always going to stand up front. They're always going to headline on SportsCenter. They're always going to take those opportunities to rise above. But in my opinion, if ever there was a weapon to take down an SEC football team, we've got 4 or 5 of them in the Mountain West. If ever there was a way to take down an ACC basketball team, we've got 4 or 5 of them in the Mountain West. If ever there was a way to take down a UConn women's basketball team, we've got a couple of them in the Mountain West. I just feel like we have so many weapons that are finally going to be able to be seen and come through the woodwork this year. I see us getting a potential Heisman candidate who is going to make a lot of noise. I see us winning a slew of national championships among all Division I sports. I see BCS berths. I see a Final Four team this year, and as we get closer to basketball, I'll talk a heck of a lot more out of that. I see huge draft picks. I think the Mountain West is a place where an athlete can find success, and we're going to start to not only see that, but expect that after this year. So I think this is a deceptive conference. We're going to make a heck of a lot of surprising noise.
Yeah, and like you said, with those bold predictions, I think we go 500 against BCS teams.
I like that.
I think we do a lot of great things. So there we go. But Steve, what did you learn today?
What did I learn today? I learned, well, outside of the fact that I learned that Preston is an egotistical jerk, I learned 2 things. One being that Cam the Ram is now my favorite name for a mascot. I think that is just an opportunity you can't pass up, and I learned a lot about the history of mascots. If you have a fun fact, by the way, about your mascot, send it over. We always like fun facts, as if you can't tell. The other big thing I gained out of all of this is that as it comes down to any conference football schedule, I think this is the most unpredictable conference in the country. I don't think you could say that, Fresno and Boise is a great prediction for the conference title game. You can't sit 100% on that. You don't know if SJSU, SDSU, if Utah State pops out of nowhere. I think that this is an unpredictable conference, and what that means is that we have some amazing talent, and what that means 100% is get ready for some excitement. There is going to be a highlight game of the week matchup every single week in the Mountain West this year. If you're not pumped about Mountain West football, clearly you're not listening.
Exactly. I learned a couple things as well. I learned that Fresno is the raisin capital of the world, which I loved that fact.
Hey, fact check. If anyone can find us the brand capital of the world,
the brand.
Get on Twitter, MWC
Raisin
Rock Jocks.
Brand.
Find us the brand capital of the world. But yeah, I like that fact too.
And I learned today, and I hope that all of our listeners learned, that there is a very good Mountain West Conference podcast on these days, and it's called Rock Jocks. What? Little
Check it out.
A little self-promotion.
So look us up, but as we said before, also look up some of our other podcasts at the here on the Front Row Network. We have some amazing stuff. A lot of them are based off of our host school, but you can learn a lot about our host school there. Maybe if you're from another university, maybe it'll motivate you to rep your university as well. We're big homers of the Mountain West. That's who we are. We love this conference. We're excited to talk about this conference, and we want to get you guys on a good stage. What that's going to take is your support. Follow us on Twitter. Get people to listen. Send us your feedback, your questions, your concerns, anything you'd like us to talk about. We want to make this about you, about the fans, about the good core of this conference, because quite honestly, we're heading to the peak, and we're going, and you are welcome to come with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning into Rock Jocks on the Front Row Network. We've been your hosts, Preston Croshaw.
I'm Steve Schwartzman.
Join the climb.